Okay, I'm just going to open it up now.
Perfect. Hello, welcome, good morning. We're just going to give it a good few minutes while others join us, and then we'll get started. Hello, welcome to those that have just joined us. We'll just give it a few minutes while signees join, and then we'll get cracking. Perfect. Welcome that those have joined us. We're just waiting for a few more people to log in, and then we'll get started with the webinar. Yep, for those that are joining, just to let you know, we're just waiting for a few more people to log in, and then we will get started. Okay, perfect. So we've got pretty good numbers in the call now, so we'll get kicked off. Couple of housekeeping points just before we get started. The session will be recorded, so please be aware of that. The recording and the slides from this session will be circulated both through our kind of social channels and via email to those that have registered. If you have any questions, we're hoping to protect a little bit of time at the end of the call. Please drop that not in the chat box, but in the Q&A box. That would be great. And we'll get started. So yeah, welcome, good morning. My name is Imogen Stevenson. I work for the Offshore Renewable Energy Catapult and sort of represent a place, which is the east of England. So for us, that covers Norfolk, Suffolk, Essex, and Cambridgeshire. Today I'm joined by some of the team, Di, John, and David, who will sort of make introductions later on in the call to talk a little bit about some of the support that we'll be rolling out across the next 6 months in the region. So that's a bit of housekeeping. I'm going to dive straight into the content. So I'll just move these slides on. Perfect. So just before we dive into Connect and programmatic support, wanted to tell you a little bit about kind of who we are, orientate you, and help you understand what our purpose is. So the Offshore Renewable Energy Catapult is set up to support UK supply chain with de-risking innovation. And the reason that we want to do that is to incentivize investment into the offshore renewable energy sector in the UK. But we can also support with sort of export support as well. So offshore renewable energy isn't just offshore wind. We have expertise in wave and tidal. We have increasing amounts of interest in things like vessel decarbonisation and hydrogen integration. So it's a bit broader than maybe your kind of typical perception of offshore renewable energy. That's just a bit of an intro. I'm going to jump straight on. Happy to take questions on broader work we do, perhaps at the end of the call or offline. So again, before we dive into the Connect program and some specifics, just wanted to provide a bit of context as to why we do support like Connect in places like the East of England. You know, those on the call, I'm sure, will be pretty familiar that the East of England is a really important place in terms of offshore renewable energy. So huge amounts of development in the South North Sea, both in terms of operational gigawatts, but also in terms of projects in consents. A significant chunk of the UK pipeline is based in this place. We're really interested in supporting supply chain onshore and have run a couple of programs today in the East of England. We did a program called Fit for Renewables a couple of years ago and supported companies that were established and focused on growth to be sort of fit for purpose in the offshore renewable sector. And more recently, we've run an accelerator program to support companies commercialize earlier stage innovation. So we've done two very different programs in the past. We're about to intro a new program, but I think this gives you a bit of context as to why we're doing what we do. We do it to support UK supply chain to grow and be successful and exploit their own IP. And these are some of the impacts of the most recent program. So, you know, whether that's increased private investment, public investment in terms of grants, growth in terms of operational bases or headcounts. But I guess the one that I'm really proud of is the products and services that have been commercialized. So that's really what it's about for us. Don't really want to labor the point here, but I thought that was a good sort of scene setting just to give you a bit of context as to why we're doing this and why those on the call might want to engage with Connect as a program sort of moving forwards. So now to really dive into East of England Connect and tell you a little bit about what it's about. I've talked to you about why we run programmatic support. I've referenced very briefly Fit for Renewables and Launch Academy. And now I really just wanted to make clear how Connect fits into that landscape, because there's other sort of pieces of programmatic support we've also run in different places and nationally. And really, we recognise in the East of England that the supply chain is pretty unique in terms of breadth and depth. It's fairly established in some parts, but equally there are those with earlier stage innovations that really need support to kind of commercialise and get through that valley of death, where they sort of develop innovations. We wanted to run a programme that had support available that would interest all, so that established companies looking at growth might want to dip in and participate in some of the training that David and John will tell you a bit about later. Equally, we really wanted to make sure that earlier stage innovators had the opportunity to access the sort of owner operators and developers to get feedback on the user cases that they're developing their innovations for, and potentially access some funded support at the back end of the program. So we really wanted to aim this program that where there was, you know, kind of support for all in a fairly light touch sense. And I think the second thing I really wanted to mention is that we're really interested in sort of leaning into that supply chain end-to-end collaboration. So working with supply chain that are established, supply chain that are earlier stage, with the owner operators and the developers themselves, but also making sure that we're bringing research capability in the region along for the ride. So trying to enhance that cross supply chain collaboration on thematic pieces of work. So they're the two reasons that Connect is different to support that we've run in the past and support that exists nationally. And we think it's important to run this support in the region because it's unique, it's fit for purpose for what we have here at present. And practically, this program could be a really nice feeder into future programs like Launch Academy and Fit For. So it could be a sort of early stage engagement with us for you to access sort of broader support at a later stage. The second thing I really wanted to mention is that there's 3 chunks of staff that this program are going to provide to supply chain and academia to support this sort of commercialization of innovation. Now, the team are going to go into specifics, but just to give you some context before we dive into each chunk of staff, throughout the program, and the program is going to last about 6 months, so we'll conclude at Easter in 2025, we're running 2 sets of training. So one of the training sessions that David will talk to you about is focused on sort of earlier stage innovators and those less familiar with the sector, or maybe those that want a refresher. And we're also going to run a training session early next year that John will talk you through. And that's really looking at companies that are established in the sector or familiar with a particular area of expertise and really want to de-risk further by knowing more about a specific topic, which will be defined by industry. The second chunk of stuff, so looking at the middle of the screen at the teal box in the middle, is around making sure that supply chain in the east of England has access to expertise to provide feedback on early stage innovation to help them understand their direction of travel, what is important to the market and how they can de-risk further and what those levers for support are. So there will be opportunities for companies to register their interest, to pitch to an expert panel, which will include expertise from our side in the particular area of innovation, but also from industry. We'll partake in that panel with a view that several of those companies will be selected for a higher level intervention support, and we will provide them support in whatever way we think meets their needs most. So, it could be numerical modeling all the way through to supporting them with the business case and maybe, some sort of market type support. In parallel with that, Di's going to talk you through some of the academic engagement that we're going to run through the program. So I won't say any more there, but it just gives you a bit of context as to how these things all plug together. And during the wrap up, I'll direct you to some links where you can register your interest for all those different bits of support. I think this really fits with a webinar that we ran a few weeks ago in collaboration with Eastwind, where the feedback overwhelmingly from supply chain was that they needed to know more about the sector, more about direction of travel in specific areas of interest to industry. And that's really what Connect is set up to do in a really easy way for supply chain to engage with in the east of England. So yeah, I'm going to hand over to David now, and he's going to tell you a little bit more about the first series of training sessions that we'll run in the region.
Hi, thank you. Good morning. I'm really pleased to be here to talk to you about Sector 101 training. So overall, the Sector 101 module tends to be a whole day's event where we get everyone around the table and we touch on some really important subjects here. First of all, why offshore wind? It's a detailed presentation covering the key topics. We look at the UK focus and why it's such a unique and exciting opportunity for wind power and energy. And we look at the wind resource itself and what that intelligence tells us about the industry. We look at offshore wind prices, and we also introduce concepts like levelized cost of energy, explaining exactly what that is. We explain terms like CFD and strike prices and how those operate. And we touch on the offshore wind market, both in the UK and globally. So we look and break down the project pipeline, looking out across the next 25 years. And we can get a really detailed insights into exactly what level of deployment we're expecting, who those key players are, at what stage in development these projects are in, and we can illustrate what the challenges and opportunities each of those developers are likely to be experiencing in the future. We also cover the project lifecycle in quite detail, so we look at the different elements that it takes to make a wind farm a reality in practice. The second stage of the Sector 101 training looks at the guide to an offshore wind farm. So that's actually a resource that anyone can use. It's a web-based resource, but we talk around that resource and explain how it works, how it's useful, and what can be learned from it. But I would encourage you to go to the website anyway, Guide to an Offshore Wind Farm. And we look at the future wind farms, and we learn about what the technologies will be driving changes in future wind farm configurations and technologies, what to expect, what potential timelines are for deployment, and again, what those priorities for businesses operating in the supply chain, operating in these future technologies, what types of things are they looking for, what skills are they looking for, and what time scales. So there's some really interesting insights. And then we've got it wrapped up at the end of the event where we have an Ask Us Anything session.
And possibly just lost David, but we'll just move on to the next section. So moving on from the sector 101, we're going to move into the state-of-the-art training course, which is going to take some of those ideas and dig a bit deeper. So particularly looking at what are the technology themes and the challenges being faced by developers at the moment. So the deployment that either currently happening through construction or the future, what are the key challenges being faced? And building on that, we'll start to look at how does an innovator take an idea from an early stage through all the development, basically through that valley of death that many of you may have heard of, through to having a commercialized product or service. Part of that is going to be looking at how does an RTO, so a research technology organization such as the Catapult, how does that support the innovation? What do we offer? And how does that fit into that broader research and innovation landscape? So that could be through different opportunities, different programs, different funding streams. It could be what is the technical support that's available and how do you access it and how does that fit in to your technology as you develop it. But as you develop that technology, we're going to look more broadly at what is the structured approach that we encourage to help de-risk that technology, and what does your roadmap look like? What are all the pieces at play within that technology development? And again, tying it back into what's the support, what's available, and what are the questions that you need to be answering as you proceed through that process to be able to be effectively investor ready at the end. And as part of that, we'll go through the broad technical capabilities that ORE Catapult have, and also what the assets, so testing assets, that we have available to help you on that journey through de-risking and demonstrating your technology to be able to get it to market in time. So key takeaways from this are going to be, what's the structured approach? How do you de-risk it? How do you identify what your roadmap is? And then how would you go about delivering that over the next 6 months, 1 year, or 2 years to be able to have a commercialized product or service at the end? And we'll address each of those throughout the training course. Yes, hand over to Di now for the academic engagement.
Thanks, John, and hello, everyone. So initially, I thought it'd be good just to give kind of an initial overview of what academic engagement is at ORE Catapult, for those who haven't experienced it more from the business side. So for us, academic engagement and research are key to the Catapult model in actually helping pull through research from academia into kind of industrial application. So over the years, we've funded and managed a number of research hub collaborations with university partners, supervised a range of doctorates and postdoc projects, and supported a number of centres for doctoral training. We were also involved in the EPSRC and Innovation Launchpad Network Plus in supporting university collaborations with Catapult centres, in which some have also had industry partners. We have active collaborations with 18 universities and sort of lower intervention type collaborations with a further 20 institutions. Next slide, please, Imogen. Thank you. So the purpose of the AE webinars are to show a better link between industry and academia on the topics that are relevant to the sector in the region. We're trying to ensure that academia are aware of the opportunities available and the best areas for them to focus their current research where it'll have the most impact. So the benefits we think of this programme, part of the programme, will be in aligning with the wider aims of the Connect programme, and it's hoped to essentially that pulling in the regional universities will provide a stronger foundation and anchor within the region. There'll be a workshop in this part of the programme, for this part of the programme 3. As Imogen said before, we'll be aiming for January for the initial webinar and the second two sort of around March time. The topics of the focus will mirror roughly the discussions being undertaken in the state-of-the-art review, state-of-the-art section, with the greater research focus obviously suitable for academic audiences. And the ultimate aim is that industry and academia can be on the same page as the requirements within the sector and more able to then collaborate on relevant research topics themselves. At the moment, we're looking to focus more on operations and maintenance, as it seems to be the most relevant sector need in the region, but we're currently in discussions as to what this will actually look like. And just as a rough guide as well, we imagined the initial market briefing would be best aimed at sort of faculty lead, more senior, and then the strategic leads within the academic institutions. And for the further 2 workshops would be best aimed at the academics actually likely to undertake the research themselves. So that's it from me. Back to Imogen.
Perfect. Thanks, Di. This is testing my Zoom skills, actually, swapping around. Okay, so just really quick wrap up then, just to cover off the practicalities of some of the stuff that Di and John and David have covered. The Sector 101 training that David talked through is live. There's a session in each of the 3 sponsoring counties. So yeah, in November, we've got a session in Harwich, Lowestoft and Norwich. Expressions of interest for those pitch for feedback sessions are open. Those pitches will be supported by both Scottish Power Renewables and Equinor as the kind of sponsoring industry partners. And 3 companies from those sessions will be picked for a higher intervention level sort of bespoke support that will be delivered from sort of January onwards. And the state-of-the-art training that John has talked through will be run in January, dates to follow. And all this information that you see is all on our website, and I've dropped a link in there as well. So that's really the kind of the overview that I think we all wanted to cover. Keen to take any questions if there are any from anyone that's joined in the last few minutes. And it looks like there's no questions. So I guess that's maybe good feedback in terms of perhaps the information that you wanted to be covered has been covered, but keen if anyone has any questions, drop those in the chat, or you can reach out to us offline as well. As I said before, the recording and the slides will be made available in email to those of you that have participated, but also circulated sort of through LinkedIn as well. Oh, we've got a question come in. So let me... Yeah, so Mark, good question on the sessions. Sector 101 will be about 3 hours. That leaves time within that session for kind of Q&A and discussion. I think there's a lot of value in the companies that are attending the sessions discussing topics with us kind of openly. So yeah, sort of 2 to 3 hours for those initial Sector 101 sessions. And just show us how this links with Launch, West and Fit for. Yep. So John, as I sort of mentioned at the beginning of the session, we see Connect as being a really brilliant feeder program for things like Launch Academy and Fit for, and potentially West, where appropriate, will be signposted throughout the program to any of the companies that engage. So this is complementary support as opposed to sort of overlapping with anything that exists. So we're probably quite close to time. I don't know if there's any other questions. Perfect. In which case, then we can probably wrap up. Can you share the links after? Yep. So Chris, the links are all on our webpage. If you just Google ORE Catapult Connect, it will drop you to the last link on this slide, and you'll see the Eventbrite links for the training sessions that are open, the expression of interest form, but these slides will come around to you in an email that we'll get out later today, no problem. Perfect. Okay, good. Well, thank you for joining. Thanks for those that supported from a Catapult perspective, and yeah, email with the info to follow. So happy to wrap up, Stuart, if that's okay.